Hi YouTube, Thibaut Van Dam here with another YouTube video, and for those of you who are not familiar with my channel, I am a singer-songwriter based in Southeast London, and today I'm going to be doing a video talking about how to connect microphones to your 4-track cassette machine. And I know this is a very niche topic, but I'm very excited to be doing it. It took me about 3 months to figure this out. And there are some great channels that talk about 4-track recording, specifically 424 recording, run by Mike Parrish. I need to give a big shout out to him because he's a really friendly guy. He's right now helping me with sort of recording my album and stuff. I'm rather like just finishing the masters, but nonetheless helping me, and just sort of moral support really. But I encourage you to check out his channel if you do work on 4-track cassettes, and you need to know more about it because it's like a go-to for me. It's an excellent resource, and yeah, please go check it out. I'll put a link in the description. So before going into this video, I just want to let you know that I'll be putting timestamps so that way you can skip around to find the information that you're looking for a little bit easier. So you can look out for those timestamps in the description. Let me think. Where do I begin? Yeah. So today I'm going to be talking about connecting condenser mics specifically to a 4-track cassette machine. And I got the idea to do this video because there's a problem with 4-track cassette machines. The problem is that they don't offer phantom power. So if you want to record a condenser mic on a 4-track cassette machine, you have to figure out how to figure that out. You have to do that basically somehow. And it's a bit of a challenge. And before explaining the solutions I was able to come up with, I want to talk about why you would want to record on a 4-track cassette machine at all. Why would you even want to do this? And some of the sort of theoretical approaches that I have going into this sort of search for solutions, because this is sort of what guided my solutions. So the first thing I'll say about 4-track cassette machines is that they're tactile. So it's a very real experience. You get to record your music, you turn knobs, you push buttons. It's great. This is a Fostex X24 4-track cassette machine. You open it, you put your cassette in, you rewind it, you hear it move. There's a belt inside. You click this button, you reset it. You have your pitch here. It's just fantastic. I love that. And alongside that idea, another thing I really love about the 4-track cassette machine, just generally, is that it totally changes your workflow. So the workflow here is basically that there's an emphasis on performance and getting good recordings on the way in. So that's particularly important because all good recordings are founded on those two fundamentals. Basically, good performance and making sure that the sound that you get at the very start is the best sound you could possibly get. Because the reality about music production is that there's a huge limit to what can be saved or fixed in the mix. You can't always save things. It depends on the music you do, because some people say that, but the truth is if you did EDM, it's all done in the box. You can always fix it in the box. Done. But with this, if you do folk or something, the guitar sound you get, that's what you got. So you make slight changes, but really there's limits. And so you have to commit to your stuff. You have to commit to your music. And even though the workflow is slower at first because you have to rewind and wait, it's actually faster because you end up starting to agree on your takes. You say, that's the take, and you don't pretend like you can fix it later. So you don't waste as much time. The other thing is you have to use your ears. So you have to think about what you're hearing, not what you're seeing. None of this visual stuff. Hearing. And then probably the most obvious reason why someone would record on a 4-track cassette machine is the analog warmth that it offers. So it offers this beautiful sort of warm sound. It offers saturation. It offers a natural overdrive and compression. It just sounds lovely. And there are nuances to the sound that are exclusively available to the analog system. So every analog system is mechanical. There are belts and little like bolts and stuff, and everything's moving inside of this box. And so they all have their little quirky things, and they're all sort of alive in that way. And for instance, with 4-track cassette machines, you end up with an anomaly called wow and flutter, which is what is it? It's like kind of fluctuations in the pitch. You'll notice it'll go, and that sort of weird stuff like VHS sort of. Very fascinating, very beautiful, and no two recordings are the same, actually. And so it's really special. But this leads me to an important point, which is that inherent to the process of recording on an analog system like this, you are basically agreeing that you're going to lose audio fidelity. So it's very important, basically, when you're going to record on a 4-track cassette machine, if you want a decent sounding recording, it's all about discretion, of course, but if you want a decent sounding recording, in my mind, what makes sense is the audio fidelity is going to automatically be reduced slightly. So go for even higher Fi. If you can get the more hi-fi sound, go for that. Whatever the higher Fi sound is, go for that, because then it will balance out. Because if you start with crap and you go into a reduction of audio fidelity, then you have even worse audio fidelity. And you don't want that. You want something in the middle, right? So let's talk about ways to preserve that. So most 4-track cassette machines will have at least one line input, like the MPF01 by Tascam. It only has one line level input. I don't know why they thought that was a good idea, but anyway, some people love that system. But in my mind, how do you record, a guitar and vocalist at the same time? How do you do that? Well, with the one, no, it's a big pain in the ass. Anyway, if you have a line level input and you have a dynamic mic, you can absolutely record. What you would do is you would take an XLR, you take a female XLR jack that goes to a male 1/4-inch jack, and you could plug this directly in. And that would work with a dynamic mic. Again, the problem is that we don't have phantom power on the system. That's the solution we're going to try to resolve in just a minute. And this would work, but the reason why you might not want to do this is, again, audio fidelity, because XLR cables are balanced, whereas line level jacks are not. They're unbalanced, and so they don't have shielding, and they're susceptible, or maybe they do have shielding, but they're susceptible to more noise. And it's not a huge deal, but sometimes you pick up things like radios or oscillations or weird feedback, electronic hum and hiss. And again, you're trying to preserve audio. So this is going to reduce the audio, preserve it as much as you can, and try to go XLR to XLR if you have it. This system has it. So you can see here we got 2 XLR inputs, 1 and 2. And so I could go XLR to XLR, and that's already one step up. Now the next step up that we're talking about is improving from a dynamic mic to a condenser. And just, it's a side note, but if you're watching this, you probably already know, but condenser microphones that are powered by phantom power offer more audio fidelity and detail than a dynamic mic. Dynamic mics are passive, so they require sort of the airwaves to physically move an object. That's how it indicates what the sound is. And so they're more sensitive, they're harder to drive, and so they're inherently a little bit more dirty sounding, and they're good for certain styles. I think the SM57, which I'm using right now, sounds great, but multiply that by 4 tracks, and all of a sudden it's a little bit more muddy, and just you're trying to preserve it, and it is a distinguishable difference. It's not just one of these audiophile things. It's a real difference between a dynamic and a condenser. So we want to get a condenser in. Now, if we were talking about vocals, the way you'd record vocals typically is with a large diaphragm condenser mic. This is an SC4400 multi-pattern large diaphragm condenser. To connect this with a digital audio interface, you'd click the phantom power button. It would be plugged in. Then you click the phantom power button. It would work. This system does not offer that. This is our big problem. This doesn't offer phantom power. This needs phantom power. What do? So the first solution, the obvious solution, is you get a phantom power supply. You get a box that is designed to provide phantom power to your microphone. You would need a power supply for your power supply, but it would work. And this is a great solution, and I'm glad that I chose this. This has 2 inputs, and I'm just going to explain how this system works. It's very simple, very straightforward, but a lot of the subsequent systems I'll explain operate the same way. You plug your microphone into the input, you take an XLR to the output XLR goes into the 4-track cassette machine, and voila, now you can record a condenser mic into a 4-track cassette machine. And this is a great solution. I got this secondhand, it was 12 pounds, and it has 2 inputs. It's perfect. Another sort of solution that's in the same school of thought, and I know that 424 Mike Parrish from 424 Recording talked about this, was to use a tube preamp, which is something called, there are a lot of systems that are tube preamps, but specifically there's one company called Art Audio Engineering, and they made something called the Art Tube MP. Art Tube MP is basically a tube preamp. It has a tube in it, and it operates the same way. It offers phantom power, and the idea is the tube offers a little bit more warmth and character. That's debatable, apparently, but anyway, it costs about $40, and I thought I could get 2 phantom power supply, 2 inputs basically, 12, or I could spend 40 and get 1. I don't know. It was obvious to get this basically. So I did. An extension of this idea of the tube preamp is, you guessed it, to get a whole new mic, and specifically a tube microphone. Tube microphones, basically like the SE Electronics 2200T, or a lot of Rode mics, like I think the Rode NTK and things like this. These are a little bit more expensive mics, but they're microphones that have the tube inside the mic. And again, you need to power that tube. So what do? You have a separate power supply for the microphone. Usually this power supply is dedicated, and specific to this mic. And it would operate the same way. You basically plug in and you plug out, and now you're into the 4-track cassette machine. That's another solution. And then the last and most interesting of all the solutions is it does involve getting new mics, but they're good mics. They're fun mics, and I'll talk about them. This is a Rode M3. This is a small diaphragm condenser mic. It has high-pass filter, pad, and it runs on a battery. So this is a great solution. This runs on a 9-volt in particular, and it sounds great on vocals. It sounds extremely good on guitar. Small diaphragm condenser mics are great for picking up more detail. So this would be good on any sort of instrument, basically. And yeah, 9-volt. So instead of having microphone, some kind of power supply, then your 4-track cassette machine, the microphone is the power supply. That's pretty nifty. It's a great idea. And the cool part about this is that there are a lot of retro designs. Basically, in the 80s and 90s, this was a problem that people had to deal with. They were like, well, I want to use a condenser to pick up this interview. How am I going to do it? This portable 4-track cassette machine doesn't offer, phantom power supply. What do I do? And then you ended up with things like this like weird, quirky microphone by Technica called the AT31a. This is an interview mic. It runs on a AA. This is another mic by Shure. It's called the Shure Prologue 16L AA. So these microphones, there's a lot of them. They're quirky. They're kind of old. Some of them are really great, and most of them can be bought a lot cheaper than they originally cost. So I would encourage you to check out maybe a battery-powered mic because you don't have to worry. It shortens your whole setup. You don't need another system and another XYZ. You got the battery. It works great. And anyone that uses guitar pedals knows when you use a battery, you offer the optimal amount of isolation. You get much less interference from other cables and sound systems. You keep it all within the system. You use a battery. Yeah. So that's it. That's just about everything I wanted to talk about. It was a lot. It was very dense, but I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. If you find my channel interesting or useful or whatever, please subscribe to my channel because it does motivate me to make new videos. And I just got to say one last thing, which is that working on a 4-track cassette machine is so rewarding. You get to physically make music. You manufacture your music. It's so interesting. It's so fun. And you really, I've started thinking a lot more about production in very physical, real ways. And it just really materializes what I do. And I find that really great. And it's nice to leave and you have your master cassette. That's really cool. And you can bounce it. And it's a learning curve, but it's really, I think, worth it. And there's so much you can do. There's so much I don't even know how to do. But yeah, if you don't have a 4-track cassette machine, they can be costly. But if you dig a little bit, if you're patient, you can find good deals. I got this for £75. I think that's great value. And there's lots of systems out there that are great. And thanks so much for watching. I just want to say also a special thank you to the people that subscribe. Thank you so much. It really means a lot. And I'll be making another video sometime soon. Ciao for now.